Hello and welcome to PlayBASIC. Today we're going to have a quick look at variables. We're going to try and get through a bit of technical jargon and then into something that actually looks like a bit of a game. So hopefully within 20 minutes maybe, hopefully, who knows. First of all, what the hell is a variable? A variable is something that we declare, and in this case I'll make one called score, and it's going to be an integer variable. Integer variables mean that it can only store integer numbers, or whole numbers is probably a better way of putting it. Okay, so what PlayBASIC will do is anytime it sees a word it doesn't know, it makes an assumption that this is going to be a variable. Now, there are two different modes that PB has. In this mode, which is the implicit mode, it's happy to just pick up this keyword and go, okay, that's a variable you've created. If it saw that at the moment, it would go, hang on, I expect something after it. I expect you to assign it some value. So what we would do is we'd type our variable name. In this case it's going to be the score of our game or something like that, and we'll type an equals, and we'll assign that the value of 1000, just because we can. If we run it, you'll see absolutely nothing. The thing compiled, ran, and then just exited straight away back to the editor. So let's use the print command, and we'll print out our score variable, and we'll put a bit of sync and a WaitKEY to make sure the thing doesn't just exit back to the editor straight away. Hit F5 to run it. There we go. Now you're probably thinking, well, what's the point of that? What can I use that for? Well, we could do mathematical operations to it. We could go score equals score plus 10. And to see the result, we need to grab a print statement, put it there. So what's happening is PB's come down here, seen our keyword score. It doesn't know what this value is. We're just calling it score because we're assigning, we're attributing what this thing is. We see an equal sign assigning 1000. Just next line displays that to the screen. Then we see an expression where we're saying the new value of score is equal to the old value of score plus 10. Print it out, and that will be printed on the line below it. Okay, same goes for things like, you might want to multiply it. I'll just cut and paste that there. Replace the addition with a multiply sign. Let's change it with, I don't know, 45. Hit F5 to run it, and there you go. 45,450. Pretty cool. So we can do basic math operations to variables. It's something that we need to know if we're going to make programs. We can divide that by something as well. If you divide by 0, you'll get an error, so let's not do that. Divide by 5, I don't know. Hit F5 to run it, and there we go. Now, all this is pretty mundane, boring stuff. Let's get to a real usage case. Let's make something that looks kind of like players' controls. So let's create a variable to represent our player's x coordinate, and we'll set its starting position at 400. Now I know that the screen is actually 800 pixels wide, so 400 would be the middle of the screen, and it's 300 pixels high initially. So these two variables, xpos is going to be our x coordinate, or our position along the x-axis. Ypos is our position down the vertical axis. Now, pretty boring. If we run that, we get nothing. Wow, exciting. Let's draw a circle. We'll use our xpos variable, we'll use our ypos variable, and we'll make the thing, I don't know, 32 radius, and we'll tell it to fill it. So let's see what happens. Let's run it. What do you know? We get a circle. Okay. But the program is still just running once and then not doing anything else. If we want to move that circle, we can do something like, let's move it left. No, we'll move it right. Okay. We would go new version of x equals the old version, or the old value of x, I should say. We'll add 5 to it. So x position when it gets to here is going to equal what x position was plus 5, and since x position was defined up the top here as being, starts off at 400, when it gets down to here, so you go, it's the same as saying 400 plus 5, so this will be 405. If I print that out the top, we'll see it. Okay, so x position is 405. Let's get rid of that line. Let's draw the circle again. We'll see kind of a blob on the screen this time. Looks like a fat circle. Let's move it more than 5. We'll move it, say, 50 pixels to the right. Now you can kind of see that there's two circles. Yes, it looks kind of funny. But it's not moving though, is it? And to make it move, we actually need to set up a main loop, or generally in most programs you're going to be using what's called a do loop. I'm just going to jump in there and do it. We have our do loop structure here, and your basic sort of video game loop in PlayBASIC is going to be like this. We have a clear screen, we'll have like a sync statement at the bottom, and we'll have our drawing code and our movement code in the middle. Now, if I took this out and cut that into the middle, I better change that. I'll change it to 1, so I know what's going to happen. Okay, so what we've done now is we're telling PB to run this code in the middle here in a loop. So PB will come down, see the do statement, run this line, does this line, does that, does this, hits the loop statement, and then jumps up to the do statement again, and just keeps going. Runs this, that, that. It'll do that forever. If you want to escape those loops, you can use the escape key, which is the top on the top left-hand corner of your keyboard. F5 to run it, and we have a circle that's just kind of split off the screen. Alright, hit escape to get out of that. Now, a couple of things we sort of have a problem with there. If we want to have a controllable character, that means we need to get input from the user. If we just add 1 to its position on the x-axis, it'll move to the right along the x-axis. If we add, I don't know, if we add do something similar for the y position variable, we add 2 to it, it'll move kind of in a diagonal motion down and across. And it's a bit fast though, isn't it? Now, we can limit the speed of these kind of loops by using the SetFPS command. There's actually a number of ways you can do it. this is kind of the easiest option for you. Now what SetFPS does is it tells PB that when we sync and we flip the invisible pixel version of the screen to the visible version of the screen, it makes sure that PB waits long enough, waits long enough that the frames can't be short. So that what happens when it runs too fast is that this loop is running so fast that all of our code and that all of our animation is just lost. It's just a blur across the screen. The capture software here is probably not doing it justice either. It tends to run much slower without running on it. But anyway, so we use SetFPS to limit the speed, to limit the number of syncs that can occur per second. Pretty technical, isn't it? Let's run it again. Now we get something that's a little bit more realistic. Hit escape to get out of that. Now, what if I wanted to control this character manually? We're going to have to jump in and do another thing we sort of haven't even looked at, is using a comparison. We're using if an EndIF block to do this. In here, there's a couple of other sort of well, you know, what we could do here is we could just, sorry, I was just thinking ahead there. To read the keyboard, if we want to have any kind of user input to control our circle, there are functions, a whole number of, a whole block of them actually, but there's one in particular called WaitKEY, and it looks like that. And what it does is it reads the state of the left arrow key on the keyboard and returns that state as a numeric value, either 1 or 0. So when it's not being pressed, it returns 0. When it is being pressed, it returns a 1. Wow, it's a lot to take in, isn't it? Okay, if I print this value out, and I sort of play with the left-hand key, arrow key, you can see when I'm holding it down. So I'm holding it down now. The value is 1 in the top left-hand corner. When I release it, it's back to 0. Let's get out of this. Now, I can use that with an if EndIF block. I can say if left key equals 1. Now I want to do something when this actually when this equals 1. So the line between our if statement and our EndIF statement is only going to be executed if this thing here is true. If it's actually, if this expression equals 1. So if I want to move the guy, move our little circle to the right, we would go new x position equals old x position plus 1. And this time we get something different. We get a user controllable character. It's a circle, it's pretty boring. So I'm holding on the left arrow key and it's moving right. What are we doing wrong? Well, to move the x-axis, or the screen itself, if we just run it again, this is 0, 0 up in the top left hand corner. So about here is pixel 400, and that would be pixel 800 over here at the end. So along the x-axis, if we add to our value, we're moving right. So we need to subtract to move it in the opposite direction. So we'll make this addition, subtraction. Let's give it a go. Press the arrow key. Wow, cool, working. There's only one control. Let's cut and paste that. Let's be lazy. and we'll make this the write key, which is another function that's a shortcut for reading a keyboard state. And so this is the right arrow key, basically it's short for. When it's pressed it returns a 1, when it's not pressed it returns 0. So the only time this line in here gets executed is when the right arrow key is pressed down. Let's put that back to an addition, and what we should be able to do now is move left and right. So when I hold in the left arrow key we move left, the right arrow key we move right. Pretty cool. And let's tackle the y-axis. Now the y variable controls the y-axis, and we'll cut and paste again. There's a function called up key. I'm just kind of jumping through this stuff as quickly as I can. Oh, got the caps locked down. Y position equals y pos minus 1. We're moving up the screen, and the screen is 0, 0 is at the top. This would be 300 approximately here, say, and that's about 600 down the bottom there. So adding to the y variable will move us down, and subtracting will move us up. So if I press up, we move up. If I press up and left, we move diagonally. But we can't move down. There's no code to do that yet. And one final little bit. Let's do this. So we can move down key, and we'll move this guy down 1. Run again. Should be able to move down with angles. Okay. There we go. So we've got through a fair bit of stuff there. I know I like grazed the surface of what things do. I know I'm rushing you through it, but some of these things you don't really have to be an expert in to understand them. If you want to change the background color, we could use a different RGB here. RGB is for creating colors, by the way. And it's kind of like blending a red level with a green level with a blue level. We'll make it, I don't know, 20 and then 100. Let's see what we get. I have no idea what it looks like. Okay, we get a bit of a bluey sort of color. What about the circle? What if we wanted this circle to be green? We'd use the ink command. We set the ink before we want to draw the command to draw the circle, I should say. And then, yeah, since it's RGB, we'll set it to a bright, terrible looking green, just to make it stand out. Well, there you go. Okay, so we're using variables to control our little character. We're reading the keyboard, and we've got an infinite loop happening, and we're using the automatic exit to get out of it. As in automatic exit, when we hit the escape key, and the sync will detect the escape key has been pressed, and it will actually stop stop PlayBASIC executing there and then. You can do things like, there's a function called escape key. So we want to loop here until escape key is down. Same thing. Well, we'll have just a quick overview again. So we have our variables being created at the top. We've created two variables that hold the x coordinate and the y coordinate. They're initialized initially. That's a bit of a tongue twister. So x variable is set to 400, which I know is the center of the screen, or the default screen size. Setting our y position on the screen, a default y to halfway up the screen. We're telling PB to limit the speed of this program, or the number of syncs that can occur per second, to 60. And it'll do that for us. we're starting a looped section of code between the do statement and the loop statement at the bottom. So PB will just keep running the code in between these two lines over and over and over again until we either tell it to exit or end or do something or jump out of that loop. Inside the loop, we're clearing the screen, we're drawing our circle with our ink color of green. We're checking if the left key is pressed. If it's pressed, we're modifying the X variable by 1, by subtracting 1 from it, I should say. That moves it left. If the keys, then we're checking if the right key is pressed. If that key is pressed, we're modifying the X variable by 1 by adding 1 to it to move it to the right. Same goes for the Y-axis there. We've just got pretty much the same logic, but we're just polling different keys and then manipulating the Y position variable. Okay, well, I hope that gives you a bit of a kickstart, and you know, please jump in the help files and jump in the forums and you know, ask for help if you're really struggling, and you know, we'll try and help you, but really at the end of the day you're going to have to bite the bullet and sort of read the material and just bang your head against the wall until you understand it. I know that's not very appealing, but it's the best advice I can give you. In fact, the best advice I can give you is just don't give up. The moment you give up, that's when you fail. And people give up so quickly. You just have to sit there and keep going at it, keep working at it, and it will click in time. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy your programming experience. Goodbye.